The Cipher Brief, because national security is everyone's business.
I want to go back now to the issue of what is top of mind for these leaders in the private sector. We have heard numerous times today that it is really the private sector kind of leading the way on these issues. So before we get back to welcoming Matt Hayden and talk about what the FBI is seeing, I want to first welcome Phil Venables. Phil is CISO at Google Cloud. And Phil, you are so busy. I try to always think about booking you months in advance. I want to thank you for being here. I'm going to ask you a very simple question, and then I'm going to turn off my camera and just listen to you go. I really kind of want to know from your perspective, as CISO at Google Cloud, what is top of mind for you? And let's do it for about 5 minutes, and thank you again for being here.
Okay, great. Thanks, Suzanne. So, I mean, like, it's, when thinking about what's top of mind, we're always focused on the threats we face and those facing our customers, where we work together with them to mitigate the associated risks. But I looked at the agenda today, and given the coverage on this in other parts of today's agenda, I won't kind of spend any time really echoing the comments on the threat. Instead, what I'd like to focus on, and it's very much always top of mind for me, is how do we as an industry adjust the economics and incentives to change the game in favor of us as defenders. So in other words, how do we create a more inherently defensible set of technology platforms, businesses, and mission processes? And here I think we've seen tremendous progress, in particular from the US government, in the past year, more strongly advocating for IT modernization as a big part of getting to this. And this also includes the close partnership with a huge amount of innovation that's going on in the private sector, especially in the large cloud providers that are the fulcrum for many improvements in this space. And this whole kind of IT modernization is something we've been pushing for, but because of the notion of moving onto an IT architecture where security has been built in, not bolted on after the fact, obviously creates significant advantages for the defenders and moves away from some of the problems of the past, where investments in cybersecurity products have been made on top of weak and outdated legacy infrastructure. And I think everybody probably appreciates from experience this old approach is because it's like building on a foundation of sand. So when I think about this in terms of the top of mind in how do we improve the economics and incentives of modern defendable technology architectures, it really comes down to three goals. First is to help companies and public sector organizations of all scales modernize their IT platforms so they can take advantage of these new defensive innovations that are baked into more modern infrastructure. And then second, as part of that, making sure that all organizations, and this is something we're very focused on ourselves, are delivering secure products, not just security products that are added after the fact. And the third, and probably kind of the most transformational point, is ensuring that we're collectively raising the baseline of security by reducing the cost of control. And when I talk about cost of control, that's not just the acquisition cost or even the operating cost, but more broadly, it's the entire cost and impact on IT delivery, business or mission processes. And this really follows the premise that if security gets cheaper, it'll get deployed in more places, and security that delivers adjacent benefits in terms of whether it's reduced customer friction or increased mission agility, that security will get demanded more as a natural part of the process. So let me try and kind of bring this to life with some examples. And I apologize, I'm going to mention some things we're doing as a commercial organization, but I'm only doing that because it's kind of illustrative. And so first, it's something we call autonomic security operations. So we're driving a range of solutions and capabilities, and the goal here is to 10x the customer security operations capabilities, not just through automation of event handling, but to help autonomically resolve issues before they need such handling. And a big driver for this is in and around the cyber workforce. And so one of the things we're working hard, not just here, but across the board, to look at how do we address the cyber workforce challenge, not just by creating more professionals, but also 10xing the productivity of the people we already have. And I think we have to look at both sides of that. Second, a lot of you may have seen where we, in partnership with some of the other technology companies, are working very aggressively across the industry on improving software supply chain security. So we're driving with our partners work to assure software supply chain integrity through frameworks like SALSA, which stands for Supply Chain Levels for Software Artifacts. This is an important addition to software bill of materials approaches because it ensures the integrity of the software described by an SBOM. So you can think of it like this. It's like if an SBOM is the ingredients on a food label, then SALSA is the whole means of understanding if the production line that made that food followed the right health and hygiene standards. So one of the things we're spending a lot of time on is making sure the industry understands that SALSA or equivalent frameworks plus SBOM or one of its standards is the necessary thing together rather than each on its own. We're also working very, very hard, as a number of companies are, in the open source community directly and through the Open Source Security Foundation to really change the game on open source security with better tools and funding for package maintainers. And also, you know, we've launched this thing we call the Google Open Source Maintenance Crew, which is an even more focused, funded effort to work with open source package maintainers to help them not just find and fix vulnerabilities but to improve the tools so as to make sure that the packages are maintained more securely to reduce the likelihood of recurrence of vulnerabilities in the future. Third, we're also focused very heavily on kind of runtime cloud security so that workloads running in the cloud can get a default high level of security, default encryption, continuous patching, high assurance security boundaries that is not typically seen in more traditional on-premise environments. And one of the reason we're focused on this is this again is one of those capabilities where companies that can run on this environment intrinsically get everything kept up to date and secure by default in a very different way than they had to spend the effort on doing previously. We're also investing with partners on increased levels of hardware security. So again, a number of you may be familiar, we open sourced our Titan security chip design, which is called Open Titan, which drives secure boot and hardware roots of trust. And also we're pushing, as are some of the other cloud providers, this notion of confidential computing where data is encrypted right to the point of computation. And then bringing transparency to that, we worked across Google Cloud, Google Project Zero, and with AMD to look at vulnerabilities in processors to enable the upgrade of various designs for the future to provide even higher integrity confidential compute. And again, this is a capability that can be transformational versus many threats, and it can be done economically so that it doesn't require even more significant investment to change the game on security. So I'll just kind of close now, and these examples I've given is all examples where we as an industry are driving economies of scale to deliver reduced unit cost of security so that higher levels of security are available to more organizations with reduced overall cost and increased adjacent benefits. And this use of economics and incentives to drive the right defensive outcomes, as well as harming the economics of attackers in parallel, is going to continue to be top of mind for me, because I think that's the way we have to keep changing the game. So with that, I will close and hand back to Suzanne, and really great to see everybody here today, and hope to catch up with everybody in person at some point soon.
So thank you so much. We really appreciate that. I think, we heard Rob Joyce talk this morning about the fact that cloud security is top of mind for him, and now hearing from industry on how you're thinking about the future of cloud security is a super helpful way to connect those dots that we keep talking about doing all the time. So I really thank you again for your time, for your comments this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you down in Sea Island at the Cipher Brief Threat Conference later this year. So thanks.